Join me as we talk all things true crime.
Made contact and shattered.
The missing 4-year-old. The parents have called in and advised that the mother had went through a wall, came home, now they can't find her.
Turn it over to another agency.
Chad, where are Lori's kids? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say?
4 were stabbed multiple times and were likely asleep during the attack. Some had defensive wounds.
Most of them had just like one that was the lethal stab wound.
Oh, what a tangled web we weave. Once I told a lie, and I told my family, I had to keep lying.
Westerman is a demon.
We haven't cleared anybody.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Please let me know if you can hear me okay. I see Johnny in chat. I also saw Dustin earlier. Tony's here. It's good to see you guys. So as soon as I get an audio check, I will continue. But I'm curious, who has seen the CW's new show, the Delphi episode that aired last week? I'm curious who's seen it. Okay, thanks everyone letting me know you can hear me. Hi, Sherry. I put together some clips that kind of recap the case and then talk updates. We will be talking about Mitch Westerman and how he wants his case dismissed. And then we will also be talking about the state's response to the deleted and recorded over interviews. Give me 1 second, guys. I just want to plug a cord in. Never mind, I can't find the cord. Let me know if my connection is good, though. I just want to make sure it's all good. So let's start off with the updates. So we'll start with Mitch Westerman, and everyone knows him as the leaker. He is the guy who was working for the defense team. He's not a lawyer, so he didn't pass the bar, but he was part of the defense's team and helped with the memorandum. And he pretty much admitted to taking photos of the crime scene on a table and leaking them. And apparently, not only was it photos, but there were pages of the discovery as well. So let me just pull something up. I want to share a friend of mine. She also subscribes to my channel. She follows the case very closely. She kind of summed it up in her community page. So this is Justice Served Daily. And she says, a motion was filed by Mitch Westerman's attorney to dismiss criminal case saying prosecution failed to prove in the probable cause affidavit that Westerman took unauthorized control over the property of the photos because he only took photos. Only took pictures of the photos. They state that Andrew Baldwin didn't have ownership of the photos, just the paper that they were printed on. Mitch Westerman doesn't think that the charging information sufficiently proved that an actual crime was committed. Now, she says, remember, he already admitted to it. So these are the filings. You're more than welcome to visit her community tab and go through them. I know some channels like Criminality have read through it, but she pretty much summed it up. They're saying that, the state didn't, they state that Andrew Baldwin didn't have ownership of the photos. So he's hoping that it gets dismissed, in my opinion, because I think this whole thing was kind of orchestrated by the prosecution, in my opinion. If you guys disagree, that's totally fine. I think that they needed more time to prepare for trial, and somehow they got Mitch Westerman on board with helping them out. And if it does get dismissed, I will think even more that this was orchestrated and that they had it already planned out that, they would get dismissed. Oh, nothing to worry about, Mitch. Just help us do this. Again, I know that's very conspiracy talk, but this case is absolute chaos, and it's a complete, you just really can't trust anything in it. Jojo agrees. Hello, Kelt. It's good to see you. And everyone else who's joined, hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so already. Oh, we got other people in chat that agree too. It just bought them more time to prepare because I believe wholeheartedly that Nick McClellan is very underprepared. He's not really. This case is just way too big for him, I think. Okay, so now that we've covered the Mitch Westerman updates, again, they haven't dismissed it officially, but they are hoping to get it dismissed. And of course, everyone charged with the crime, hopes that something gets dismissed. Like I said, if this ends up getting dismissed, then I just have that feeling that it was all kind of planned ahead of time to buy more time for the trial. And hello, Christina. It's good to see you. All right, let me play the clips that I put together, and then we will get into the Crime Nation review and, the update from the state about the deleted or recorded over interviews that they completely lost. So stay tuned.
I think investigators constantly relook at evidence every day. Is there something I miss? Is there something else I can do?
What do you think of the strategy from law enforcement so far?
I just think they should have been releasing information a lot sooner.
Can you say anything about why investigators are focused on your client?
You guys will read the probable cause affidavit, and you may wonder why they are focused on our client.
Allen has no criminal history, but Carroll County dispatch records show he had one encounter with police in 2015. The sheriff said it was a domestic issue where Allen was supposedly drunk and his wife took him to a Lafayette hospital. No law enforcement action was taken, but deputies were sent to his Delphi home to, quote, keep the peace.
Is there somebody else out there?
Right now, we've arrested Richard Allen. And that's what the courts have allowed us to do. We are going to be searching for anyone involved in this case until it's over.
Mm-hmm. People want to make the assumption that the voice saying down the hill, it belongs to the person that's captured in the image from the cell phone. That's not necessarily the case. We're not making any assumption about that. We have more video. We have more audio.
There's still speculation out there that investigators should still continue to look, even though he's passed away, around Logan where the bodies were found.
We're going to keep doing what we've done until there's nothing left for us to do. We're going to keep doing it.
When you guys searched Mr. Logan's property, Kim Riley, was it Kim's? And he was saying it was because some things didn't add up. Are we still looking at Mr. Logan as possibly involved?
At everything and all of it. We're looking at all of it.
Time Klein, August 2020 interview, he had already flunked a polygraph test during which he had been asked if he knew who the Delphi killer was. The transcripts show a line of questions to Klein. Key to their line of questions was the certainty that at least one other user had access to Klein's fake accounts and therefore a direct line to the girls. Klein estimated he had communicated with more than 200, one of them being Libby. Klein had lied to detectives in early interviews, claiming to have only messaged Libby on one occasion for a couple of hours, and stating that he had photos with her. In August, officers confronted him with the fact that they knew that Anthony Schatz had messaged with Libby across several weeks, offering to buy her gifts and sending pictures of himself and what he claimed was his Ferrari. The detective pulled out specific messages in a bid to jog Klein's memory, including one where he asked, "Is it bad that I'm super into you?" According to the detective, Schatz had messaged with Libby during the sleepover she had with Abby ahead of their final day.
Attorneys representing Delphi murder suspect Richard Allen claim that investigators destroyed evidence.
And they say these videos were crucial to their defense.
One day after Special Judge Fran Gull told the defense team she would not agree to their motion to take herself off the case, Allen's attorneys claim evidence that could raise doubt about their client and that maybe he didn't commit those killings has been destroyed by the state. The first days in February of 2017, the investigation into the killings of Abby Williams and Libby has been frustrating, with false starts, alternative suspects, leaked evidence, and allegations of bias and incompetence. This new motion alleges evidence the defense says it needs someone besides Richard Allen committed the murders has been destroyed. The defense team has a theory that the girls were killed in a ritualistic fashion that is indicative of a Nordic belief system referred to as Odinism, and specifically interviews with 2 Carroll County men who admitted practicing Odinism, one of them the father of a teen dating Abby, were deleted or taped over or maybe never taped at all. And an attorney not involved in the case says the state has a duty to protect all the evidence.
The defense has to be told about everything. The prosecutor does not determine what is exculpatory because prosecutors don't know how to build a defense. They know how to build a prosecution. So if they think it might be exculpatory, they need to turn it over.
All right. So thank you so much for watching those recaps. And Tom N., thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate you. He says, hello, everyone. I hope everyone is good. Hi, Amber. Hello. And Georgia says, thank you for addressing both sides. Just listening to another channel before you came on, and they were saying Richard Allen doesn't have an alibi when we know his defense team says he was there around 12 to 1:30. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to thank me for addressing both sides. I'm very much, you'll find me in chats that are pro-defense. You'll find me in chats in channels that are pro-prosecution. I really like to get a feel for both of them. I really like channels that are, unbiased, like Criminality. She's very much, middle of the line, fair on both sides. That's how I like to be as well. So yeah, I know a lot of you guys are the same way. Like, we're very open-minded. And hello, Princess May. So much. I appreciate that. And too hot. Richard Allen, red holder, just right. I mean, it's his interview being one of the ones that is gone, and the fact that we've heard that there's contradictions between his interviews later. Compared to the first interview, it's unsettling. Seems like more than just those 2 interviews were taped over. We just haven't heard who, in my opinion. I agree. I got that feeling too. And Kez Chicks, thanks so much for being a member for 11 months. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate all our members. Hello, Roxanne. Thanks so much for sending that Cash App the other day. I really appreciate you. I appreciate you all. All I ask is for you guys to hit that like button, and that's pretty much it. So now I want to go through the state's response to the deletion or recorded over information interviews that were done in the first week. This isn't being covered enough. In fact, before we came on, I just checked Court TV to see if they've done an updated segment on this. They have not. I see Nancy Grace did a segment about the Crime Nation show and criticized it and got a bunch of misinformation in there, but she has not, covered the fact that these interviews have been recorded over or deleted, however you want to call it. I know that she's a former prosecutor, and I know that Vinnie Politan's a former prosecutor, but I would just expect them to kind of cover every little detail in this case like they do in other subjects. But as soon as it's something that is unfavorable for the state or prosecution, it seems everyone's just radio silent. But this news source is all over a lot of Delphi stuff. So Indianapolis area crime, state says deleted interviews in Delphi murders case were not evidence. Carroll County, Indiana, prosecuting attorney Nicholas McClellan responded to Richard Allen's defense team by saying that a pair of interviews conducted in the 3 days after the Delphi murders, which were accidentally recorded over at the police station, were not evidence at all related to this case. A few weeks ago, Richard Allen's attorneys filed a motion to dismiss murder charges leveled against their client on the grounds of destruction of evidence. Allen is charged with 2 counts of murder in the killing of Libby German and Abby Williams near the Monon High Bridge near Delphi, February 2017, 7 years ago. Allen's attorneys, Andrew Baldwin and Bradley Rosie, claimed in early February that police interviews conducted with the 2 men in the days following the discovery of the teenager girls' bodies were paramount to their alternative theory that the girls' deaths were part of a ritualistic killing with ties to Odinism. However, the raw footage of these interviews does not exist, only documents that summarize the interviews with the 2 men whom Rosie and Baldwin call key suspects. So this is referring to, the Odinist guys, the one that we've shown an image of, whose son dated Abby, Brad Holder, and then Westfall, the other guy who's linked to Odinism. So other people are saying that they feel, like you said, Kelt, and how I agree that it seems like it was more than just those 2s, but the fact is, like, those interviews are very, important and vital to this whole case. I don't care if you say that it's not evidence to the case. How can, like that lawyer said, how can a prosecutor come to the determination what evidence is exculpatory or not? They're not set up to defend the defendant. They're set up to prosecute and to, accuse. So somebody whose job it is to accuse, how can they say that a specific piece of the puzzle, because that's what it is. Every single interview, no matter how small or how big it is vital. Because they went back and found an interview / tip with Richard Allen, and suddenly that interview and that small tip is huge. But they're claiming that this stuff, look the other way, nothing to worry about here. It wasn't important to the case. It's just, it just adds to the chaos, hence the title of the live stream. McClellan confirmed that these interviews were destroyed inadvertently at the Delphi Police Department. According to McClellan, a DVR error caused the device to continuously record for an unknown number of days, recording over all existing footage already on the device. All interviews conducted in the Delphi police investigation room prior to February 20th, 2017 were lost due to this error. They were not destroyed by the state purposefully or in bad faith, McClellan wrote in his response. And then that's the thing, it really could have been, an accident, not done on purpose or in bad faith. But unfortunately, you can't just say like, oh, well, it wasn't important anyways. And don't worry, we got transcripts. I'm sorry, but if this case didn't go the way it has thus far, I would trust those transcripts. But I don't know about you guys, and let me know your thoughts. Maybe I'm just being too cynical, but how they lost Richard Allen's tip, how it took so long for an arrest, everything else that kind of happened. They secured the crime scene, and then it was unsecured for a while, and then they had to re-secure it. There's just been so many things in this case that have made me question if there's corruption, if there's, gross negligence, I guess you could say. All right. So while recordings of the raw interviews no longer exist, McClellan argued that the judge should throw out the defense's attempts to dismiss the charges against Allen for destroyed evidence because the 2 interviews in question are not evidence related to the case. The evidence in question is not exculpatory evidence, nor is it potentially useful evidence, McClellan said. The prosecutor stated that the interviews with the 2 men instead is just the defense's team's attempt to prop up their wild theory of this case. It has no evidentiary support whatsoever. The theory is Rosie and Baldwin's previous claims that Allen wasn't responsible for the deaths of the 2 girls and best friends who went for the walk on the historic Delphi trails only to be killed. Rosie and Baldwin instead have presented a conspiracy-fueled theory of a ritualistic murder seeped in the occult. But this theory has been shot down by McClellan before as being unfounded with absolutely no proof. While footage of these interviews no longer exists, documents summarizing the interviews still do. McClellan pointed out that the defense team only speculated that these interviews would include some new wrinkle that would aid in their defense theory. Mere speculation, mere speculation is not enough, McClellan said. McClellan said the defense team could still interview both men if they so wished. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I believe some people's first statements are very vital and very important and matter much more than going back years later, now that they know everything that is going to be used against them or that the police know, it's not really beneficial or the same to go back and interview these people now. Let me just pull up what that lawyer said about all this again. It's just a couple seconds clips. And then I want to get your guys' take in chat on whether or not you feel this was shady, or even if it was an accident. Was this incompetence? Was this gross negligence? Do you trust that, there's nothing in these interviews?
All the evidence.
The defense has to be told about everything. The prosecutor does not determine what is exculpatory because prosecutors don't know how to build a defense. They know how to build a prosecution. So if they think it might be this exculpatory, they need to turn it over.
So this is ridiculous, Candy says. Hi, Christina. Should be Richard Allen's recording is missing too with Doolin. Without the videos, how can you trust his transcripts? Exactly. Like, I'm sorry, but if you go through my live streams when this, because I have a whole playlist, when this case started, I very much had faith in, the investigation, in law enforcement. I had no opinion on, the sheriff, on Carter, on anything really. I just was following it with, they must know what they're doing. They must have this guy. He must be the guy, that we should be looking at. And I toyed around with information about, Ron Logan, and we went through stuff fairly, but, it's just Purdue report almost disappeared too. Right. And we almost never got the in chambers transcripts. We had to kind of put up a fight to get those too. Let me see what you guys are saying about this. McClellan doesn't think the interview of his Freemason brother was exculpatory. He knows it was inflammatory too. I recorded stuff, but I will never tell. Oh my gosh. It's just too much. It's too much. It is significant, and the law enforcement response of no big deal, interview them again is absurd. Exactly. All interviews are evidence. I totally agree there. It really is. I feel there are layers in this. Did what, in my opinion? I agree, which brings me to Otama, and thank you so much for the chat. I think the deleted footage from the gas station surveillance was this stuff being deleted. Oh, I mean, the fact that was also, I forgot about that. Unsettling. And thank you for the super chat. Unravel, good to see you. I do think the police tried their best, but from the word goes, this case has been fishy, contaminated scene. I agree, Johnny. It seems that some countries and states haven't spent their government money very well. It's just, you would expect the fact that they have better evidence on Brad Holder and Elvis Fields and Patrick West. It's because I'm getting him and Westerman confused in my head, who I absolutely think could have killed anyone out without care. That's the thing too. Also, I wrote down in my notes before we get into the review of Crime Nation. And again, you guys, I liked it a lot for the most part. Let's see, what did I say about this deleted stuff? An accident, and those interviews are vital in the investigation, but it's lost, so they couldn't convict Brad Holder or Westfall. Yeah, just to bring that up. Let's say that those two guys are the perpetrators and they want to convict them, but come to find out they would have to do the same right now, and it would be exposed that they mishandled their interview. You know, there's no way, well, I mean, I guess it could happen, but to get a conviction for something like that, you know, say that Brad Holder and Westfall are involved, or, you know, one or the other. The fact that it would come out by their legal team probably that, oh, well, how can we trust these transcripts? You guys recorded over the real footage, the real audio. We can't even see the video. You know, it's not a good look for the prosecution. So instead, what if it, let's go after somebody else. We're desperate and we can't let, you know, people know that we lost the interviews for somebody who could be the perpetrator. Do you guys see what I mean? And hello, Delina. It's good to see you. I'm not saying that Brad Holder and Westfall are the guys, but what if they are? And then, you know, you would try to prosecute them and it would come out that, oh, well, we have the transcripts of their interview. You know, that just wouldn't look good for a jury of 12. With all the other mistakes that they've made in this case, that just wouldn't be a good look, you know? What's their excuse for not set warrants on BH and PW? I don't even know. For exposing something to an election. It just depends on how you look at it, I guess. Like, you could look at it that way, but then again, the media, like I said, Court TV and, you know, Nancy Grace and these big people are not covering the media is pushing stuff, you know, negative towards the defense and, you know, amping up how good law enforcement has done in this case and all that. So it really, I guess, into certain things. For the most part, it seems like the media really amps up the state on this case, and a lot of people have faith that everything's being done right and that Richard Allen is the right guy. In fact, I feel like the documentary Crime Nation really kind of, I mean, Rick Snay, I thought he was great in it. I didn't even recognize Gray Hughes without his hat and glasses on, but then as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, oh, duh, that's him. I thought everyone was awesome in it. Julie, you know, I didn't realize how pretty she was. Everyone just, you know, really, the whole documentary was really good. I definitely recommend seeing it. You can watch it for free on the CW's website. That's actually how I watched it on my laptop. And hello, Florida Bass Fishing. He said I made it. Good to see you outside of a Watts live stream. Glad you're here. So yeah, I definitely like the documentary. It brought back the focus on Abby and Libby, because a lot of stuff in this case has been us going through court documents. And don't get me wrong, I love watching channels kind of break those down, and this means that, and, you know, my perspective on this, it would be this. And, you know, it's like, I love getting the legal commentary and stuff like that while we go through these court documents, because the gag order has kind of prevented people in the family from speaking out. So I thought that the documentary did a good job kind of bringing the focus back to the victims, and we were kind of able to the case again without all the mess from courts and Supreme Court and Judge Gull. I don't even think they mentioned Judge Gull once. I think they mentioned a special judge near the end, but they didn't even show her or her face. So I wonder if she's upset about, you know, not being invited. Just kidding. But I was wondering if that podcast was upset that they weren't on the show at all. And you guys know what podcast I'm talking about. So Kelly, the girl in the documentary, who is the girl who catfished the catfisher, Keegan Klein. What did you guys think of her? I thought it was interesting that Rick Snee flat out said Kelly overstepped trying to get info from Keegan Kline. I don't really, what came of it, her discussing things with him for 9 weeks. I don't really know if there was anything that was kind of vital to the investigation that was pulled from it. You guys let me know either way. You might have been following this stuff longer than I have, but I feel like if they needed a girl to kind of catfish or to catfish Keegan Kline and get information, then law enforcement has their own resources to kind of do that and go in undercover. So I just think that the documentary not only showed like a good perspective of the case, but it actually showed a really good perspective of the true crime community, especially in the Delphi case. I, have never seen a more combative, more, I don't want to say toxic, but at the same time I do, community in a case besides Watts. The Watts case in the community is toxic as well. But I would have to say that Delphi is a little more toxic in comparison, believe it or not. I think there might very well be a double standard between male versus female reporting on the case. Interesting. What do you mean by that, Kelt? I'm curious. Florida. ATS, I was going to describe, but for your sake, I'll be good. Feel free to share your thoughts. I can handle it. So let's see. I'm just looking at my notes about the show. So not only did they focus really good on bringing everything back to the victims, and they also showed how toxic the community can be with the web sleuths. They brought up Ron Logan a lot. They had his ex-girlfriend on who talked about, the DV between them. And which, by the way, yes, Ron Logan's record looks more aligned with somebody who would commit maybe a crime like this murder, but it just, 1 in 3 women are victims of DV, and 1 in 4 men are victims of DV. So for them to kind of say well, he was abusive towards women in the past, I get that. I definitely understand the concept of profiling somebody and look what they've done in the past. They could possibly have done this crime because of their history. I totally understand that. I just think that Ron Logan is just part of those statistics, and he might not have been even, attached to this crime. But they really went in on Ron, talking about, his phone pinging around the crime scene around the time that everyone was looking for them. Now, I've seen that. We've talked about that on my channel numerous times. Yes, confirmation bias on her part. I think that you know what? I appreciate her coming out and telling her story. I think all victims have a right, and actually I appreciate them telling their stories, but I just feel like in this case, while it does paint Ron Logan in a way that's wow, you know what? Maybe he did. I just think it's too vague. It's too broad. Like I said, 1 in 3 experience what she experienced. 1 in 4 men experience that, which was why we covered the Johnny Depp trial, because I just feel like men don't really get to share their experience with DV. What was I going to say? Somebody asked something. Was RA abusive? So we talked about it before. He was never arrested, but there was an incident where police had to come and keep the peace. Hold on, I can play that little clip. We just went over it in this little segment. 1 second.
They are focused on our client.
Allen has no criminal history, but Carroll County dispatch records show he had 1 encounter with police in 2015. The sheriff said it was a domestic issue where Allen was supposedly drunk and his wife took him to a Lafayette hospital. No law enforcement action was taken, but deputies were sent to his Delphi home to, quote, keep the peace.
So that's what we know about his history. Um, and I did find Ron Logan's girlfriend interesting, and I'm glad she was on there. But yeah, the statistics are super sad. They are. Okay, Amber, did Alan do it or not? I cannot say 100% either way at this point. If you asked me that when I first started covering this case, I would say it looks like Bridge Guy. You know, he admitted to being there, yada, yada, yada. But I don't trust confessions. I think we've seen that in other cases that false confessions happen a lot. We don't have the transcripts for these confessions, so we don't know the context of what he had said to his mom and wife, and supposedly prison guards heard things too. But I'm just reading your guys' comments in chat. Make sure you're kind to each other's different of opinions. Yeah, I'd like to see the police report. Well, they just said that there was no police report, that was found, that information was found on a 911 dispatch. So again, I'd like to see more information regarding that. Which brings up another thing that I wanted to ask you guys about. Where did this rumor come from that soon after the murders, Richard Allen had to check himself into a psych ward or a rehab facility or something like that? Have you seen Ron Logan's gate, Amber? That gave me chills. Just like Bridge Guy. You know, it's hard because that little clip is a loop and all it is like one step. So I think that it's foolish for the law enforcement to say, pay attention to his walk, pay attention to his mannerisms. How can I tell this man's walk and mannerisms from a 2-second clip that you guys have looped? So I just feel like, and also I've seen a video, I can't remember who. I don't want to say it was Rick's name. Somebody went to the bridge and they were walking very similarly because the bridge is so, broken up and deteriorating so quickly that you kind of have to step carefully. So I don't know if Bridge Guy's gait and walk and mannerisms is because that's just how he walks on a regular flat surface, or that's him being cautious and you kind of walk differently on something that's kind of falling apart. Simple as this. If there was a silver Ron Logan was BG, Richard's difference, it would be all over that. I agree. There must be some kind of like, and thank you so much for that super chat, Tom. That's one of the reasons why I kind of let go of him. I still keep him on my board, but off to the side. I think maybe he's somebody who stumbled on the crime scene before other people and was like, oh crap, like I got to get out of here. Or maybe his dog, ran out there and he followed it, but he didn't want people to know that he found that, so it's just, I know he came up with his alibi before we knew that they were dead and stuff like that, obvious. And the whole FBI's search warrant is very interesting. And it seems like they agreed that was his image on it, and that was his voice in the clip. But I feel like sometimes investigations get tunnel vision on somebody. And I think that Ron Logan, however, time, he is still somebody that I'll just put off to the side. And why wouldn't the defense team use him? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't they? There must be something that is keeping him out of their memorandums and theories. Can you please play Ron Logan's gate? Sorry, I have it clipped in this. If it's not in this little clip, I have it on my channel in other live streams. You would have to go back. There was something I was going to say too.
Are we still looking at Mr. Logan as possibly involved?
At everything and all of it. We're looking at all of it.
See, I have other images of it that's better. You would have to, go back on my playlist and find those, because that one's not the best little clip, but it did show a little bit of it. You might be able to kind of slow it down too and watch it that way. And hello, Claire, Caroline, and Digital. It's good to see you. And Abby knew well that she would be grounded forever if being on that bridge. I don't think she would have let Lindy snap out that photo. Just my that, but you definitely could be onto something there. Crap, what was I gonna say about Ron Logan? Oh, that's what it was. That is being reported over all the time, and it's just, hi Zoe, in the documentary that Ron Logan died in 2020. 22. So it's continuously like reported in more than one media source that he died in 2020. Like, yes, he got COVID and that happened in 2020, but he died in January. Hold on, it's somewhere in this article because I wanted to find it before the live stream. Which is interesting, in my opinion, that he died in 2022. And then 10 months later, they arrest Richard Allen. So where the heck is it? Okay. Over the years, other names have emerged in connection with the homicides. Logan, who died January 24, 2022, was never arrested or charged with the murders. But as I've seen it mentioned too, said that in 2020, but no, yeah, they have been reporting it wrong often. What is the deal with that? Is it just a mistake, or are they trying to spin some narrative that I'm just not catching on to? Like, I just don't understand. So he dies in January, end of January, and then 11 months later, they arrest Richard Allen. So I think that's interesting. I don't know if there's any relevancy to it. Apparently, there is surveillance showing Logan in a place and a receipt from the fish store Logan was at during the time the girls disappeared. That would be interesting because that would definitely clear him, right? Nancy Grace said COVID killed him. Did she say Richard Logan to protect Brad Westerman and Patrick Holder from Ronald Allen? You're just trolling, aren't you? That can't be true. But Nancy Grace did make a ton of mistakes. I think a mistake and it took hold. Yeah, I think so too. The receipt was around 5. See, like, that's something that I would need to see. They're saying that the murders were done and over with by 3:30. So if this receipt presented actually does say 5, then that doesn't really fully clear him, does it? All right, so what else did I write down as my little notes with this Crime Nation? Yeah, so if Richard Allen is their guy, the sketches all over town, how did nobody recognize him as BG for 5 years? Delphi is corrupt AF, in my opinion. I can't disagree with you. And, the young guy sketch, first the other sketch, and then they come out and they're like, disregard that first sketch for the first few years. This guy is who we're looking at. He's in his 20s or 30s, or he just looks like he's young. He's got brown, red hair. None of that is Richard Allen. It's just not. I've even seen a picture of Richard Allen, like completely fully shaven, like no facial hair. And you know how sometimes guys, when they shave their facial hair off completely, you're like, oh my gosh, you look like a baby. Not Richard Allen. He still looked like in his 40s, early 50s. So I'm just very confused on where this red hair is coming from too. Curly. Now, Richard Allen has, when he has his hair out longer. You can see it is thick, but it's nothing like that young guy sketch. So I'm very confused there. Not a fan of Nancy Graves, former prosecuting attorney, my twins, John, David, and right, it's the same thing. Yeah, in a small town, somebody would have said, that looks like Richard Allen. Nobody said it. He worked right in town at the CVS. You know how many people go there for their prescriptions, for anything really, especially during 2020, during these years, There is video footage of Ron Logan at the transfer station in and around, dressed in totally different clothes. There is also video from Fish Aquarium store. How does people know this stuff? Is this just stuff that's like been around since the beginning? Because I want to see this stuff. And at this point, with Ron being deceased and, they've already come out with his search warrant, what's the harm in kind of showing us like, yeah, actually, here's Ron Logan and here's the timestamp. I would love to see that. You know what I mean? Like, why can't they show that? I don't understand it. All right. Let's see. What else did I write down about Crime Nation? Of course, like Ron Logan had to be touched on. They had to touch on Keegan Kline. They go through everything that we already know. I played a little bit of recaps of the basics in this case and the people tied to it. That's what the documentary did. They go in depth a little bit more. It was a good overview. No footage of aquarium store, but yes to transfer station. Okay. I'll try to find the trash video and email you. Please do. Kelt, are you on Instagram? Because I really don't like to give my email out, but I will inbox people on Instagram. But I would mail to you. I trust you. I seen the video of Ron Logan throwing garbage bags out his white truck on Sleuth Intuition's channel. Oh, really? See, he has good visuals. I need to see that to kind of fit it into my whole collection of visuals. Agree. Referencing random facts cited. For me, too, many random substantiated rumors get accepted as proven. Right. And I want to know who started spinning this narrative that Richard Allen, soon after the murders, had to check into a psych ward, or I've heard people say it was a rehab center for his drinking. Where is that coming from? Who put that out there? Because the only people who know stuff like that is, the doctors and people who work in the facilities and the patient. So I'm very confused on like where the source is, why it was put out there. I've gone back and tried to find like the basis of this, and I just can't find anything that's like, valid other than Facebook rumors and even Reddit posts where they're saying like, yes, I heard that, but where did this start from? Every woman in a small town goes to CVS. It's true. We got to pick up our supplies and, the women's stuff once a month. I mean, how did they talked about in the documentary, like everyone was on edge when this murder took place. Everyone was paranoid. Everyone thought, who could this be? So then this guy's been here this whole time and no one thought like, oh my gosh, look at this guy. Took a picture of him and like compared it. Like we have pictures of people that, if you follow the Watts case, people are like trying to track down the mistress because she changed her name and like went into hiding. Not witness protection, but hiding herself. And people have been like, is in Facebook groups and on YouTube, is this Nicole Kessinger? And we look and we're like, no, that's not her. How did nobody do this? Like with Richard Allen, is this Bridge guy? Never came up. No, I'm not on Discord. I don't know how to use that, but either way, I'll get it from you if you can grab it, Kelt. Hold on. I wanted to scroll up and see. It was released in the beginning when they picked him up, Miss ATS News. Are you talking about the rehab thing or the psych ward thing? Where did it come from, though? ATS, you blocked me on Instagram. No way. I don't believe it. Has there ever been a case where someone was convicted of murder with an unspent bullet as the main piece of evidence? The unspent bullet being the main piece of evidence, I'm not aware of. The unspent bullet kind of being thrown in there as part of the forensics and evidence. I think that Indiana was like one of the first or only states to have done so. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys. But either way, think about it. That forensics with the unspent bullet is all they have. And they talked about in the documentary that when they questioned Richard Allen, they asked him, did other people have access to your gun? Did you let other people use your gun? And he said no. Now, I'd love to see his police interview. I really hope, after the trial or during the trial, we're able to see that like we did with Alex Murdaugh. Because I want to know if he's kind of walked into these things. I don't know. I just think that the bullet is very suspicious. I think that it's weird. It was never mentioned in Ron Logan's search warrant. It was never even rumored upon until people started saying, including family members, that during the Bridge Guy video, you hear them say gun. And then I've also heard that you hear the gun being cocked. So which is it? Did they say gun? Can you hear it being cocked? Is it both? Why couldn't they release that? Like they've said that the guys down the hill audio doesn't match up with the visual of the guy walking. Okay, that's fair. Why can't you release the girls saying gun or the cocking of the gun? His former coworker said it on Reddit about him going to a rehab or a psych ward facility. I think that's right. All Eyes on Delphi, if I'm remembering correctly. I haven't blocked anybody. Stop. Right. And none of that is evidence. So let's see. BH was definitely involved, in my opinion. You're not the only one who's thinking that. So imagine what 12 jurors are going to think. And let's say he's not involved. Once the jurors, which I figured that would probably end up finding out that his first interview in the first, week or whatever was deleted or recorded over and they only have transcripts. I don't know. I'm somebody who kind of is a critical thinker and not very trustworthy. And I don't really like authority that much. It's been an issue for me my whole life. That's something that would like raise my antenna. Like, this is weird. How do they record over something? How do you let a mistake like that happen in a double homicide with girls, teenage girls? We're not talking about an old, not that their lives don't matter as much, but I think you guys understand what I'm saying. We're not talking about citizens that were on the bridge and were murdered. This case was handled with such gross negligence. There you have it. Am I the only person that grew up in a small town pre-Facebook? Rumors everywhere. Let's see. Brad Holder is BH. Yes. Someone said take former employees this long later. That's the thing too. It's like, I remember that being talked about when I jumped in, thinking that's significant. And mentally, or he's got a drinking problem. Maybe he was drunk at the time of the crime, because statistically a lot of murders happen when somebody's intoxicated. They kind of go hand in hand. Watch Sig Solve's latest RL debunk. As you're suggesting, now later in the game, I need something more than just a coworker saying that he was, mentally struggling soon after the saw of Ron and said, hey, that's the new Ron, who called in and said, I know Ron, and that's him on the bridge. And they've listened to his voice and they said, that's him. Ron had I don't know, over 15 tips or something that was called in against him right away. So Again, I don't know. I'm not feeling like Ron's involved. And in fact, in the documentary, there's a, what was her name? I know that she's been on Duty Ron and other crime YouTube since as like, they ask her on, what was her name? Oh yeah, Joni Johnson. She wouldn't take Ron off the table. She thought it was too late in the game for him to do a crime like that. So I don't know how you guys feel about 227. Let me know your thoughts, because I'm kind of under the impression like I wouldn't put it past any. But again, if he's by himself, 77 years old, 2 teenagers, who knows? I know, Florida, you're fine. I'm going through your guys' comments. Rick's past at the time was that he was a recovering alcoholic, went to an institution sometime prior to me working there. Oh, that's the quote from the employee. I worked with Rick Allen for 8 months at CVS. Interesting. Okay. Am I cutting out? Liquid courage fuels many disorderly acts. I agree. And statistics agree too. Let me turn my camera off. Maybe that'll help. 2 of his exes and his cousin thought it was him. It was his property. And that's the thing too, Candy, is I was like thinking about it also, and I put it in my notes. For Ron, you know, not only does the defense team not like name him or like go after him, which kind of is like, oh, okay, well, there must be something that's not linking him more than what we think. But why? And for those who think the bridge guy, and on replay, if you guys think so, for those who think that Ron Logan is bridge guy, my question for you guys, I'm totally open to your theory. I'm totally open to that. But why would he put them on his own property? That's what I really want to know. Okay, so is it better now that I turned my camera off? If I was Ron Logan and I had it in mind to do evil stuff, why would I? Yeah, exactly, E. Caroline, like Jinx. That's the thing too. And like I'm totally my connection sucks tonight, going in and out. Oh. Hopefully it gets better. I plugged in my little cord that's supposed to help. Okay, Johnny, stay safe with that tornado coming. Sound, Florida says. Okay, it is better with my camera off. Okay, I prefer the camera being off anyways. But yeah, for those who think it is Ron Logan, too drunk to realize he hadn't quite moved them off his property. I mean, maybe. I'll keep that one up as like a, don't forget the cat litter. Oh yeah, for Johnny. Yeah, don't forget it. What ex-girlfriend, boyfriend doesn't think that? Right, confirmation biased. Some in their 70s, especially living on the land, are very strong. I agree. But at the only about 10 to 15 feet on his property, I think he would have never done that since he did plan out an alibi. True. Exactly. Why take the... I agree with you. I see exactly what you're saying. All right, so let me go through my notes some more and talk about the... Actually, let me pull up to mix things up, and then we'll get back to my notes. A little segment about this that was on News Nation. So Ashley Banfield, although sometimes she did annoy me during her 04 coverage, overall, I'd say I like coverage. She watched information and digging before she got fired from HLN. But she was in the documentary. I liked her commentary. And this was out, I think, a couple days ago. So let's just watch this, and then we'll get back to the notes about Crime Nation.
The premiere episode of the new true crime series featuring News Nation's own Ashley Banfield and Brian Entin will dive into the Delphi murders. The episode showcases new and exclusive interviews and digs deeper into whether or not police arrested the right suspect in the case. For more, we're joined now by News Nation senior correspondent and Crime Nation contributor Brian Entin. Brian, I cannot wait to tune into this. This is one of those cases that has really garnered a cult following. I mean, are we about to learn that police may have bungled this case?
Look, it's certainly a possibility, Marky. We really dug deep for this episode tonight. They're 2-hour episodes. You can imagine you can really get into a lot when you have 2 hours. And it's been 7 years since the murders. But when you take a step back and look at it and do a new investigation, sort of from like a 20,000-foot view, you realize that there quite possibly are some really serious issues with the investigation. There's all sorts of questions about whether the crime scene was compromised. There's been leaks and crime scene photos that have come out that weren't supposed to come out. There's been multiple suspects who have been accused over the years and persons of interest. So there's a lot of questions about whether they actually have the right guy right now. And this is a small town, Delphi, only a couple thousand people. 7 years later, they still really have no closure. As part of the show, we spoke to friends and family of the victims, Abby and Libby. Take a look at a clip, Marky.
Hold up, really, Kelt? Brian Entin is being sued by Johnny Depp. Is that true? And Kezchik, I definitely see what you mean. Like I said, he's not my main guy. And in fact, none of them are really my main guys. Richard Allen's not. I mean, there's nothing that my gut is saying like, yes, that's it. That's the missing piece. That's the person. You said, I think Ron could be involved. Not saying he is, but I feel more are involved. I think it's more than Richard Allen if Richard Allen's involved. I just don't think it's a lone wolf thing. I don't know. Oh, Popcorn Planet said it today. What? I need to look into that.
I do regret not going with them, yes.
This is the picture that was used in one of the first news releases. It's Libby. She looks full of life. Oh, this is kind of hard.
Hard? Why is this hard?
I don't know, it's different holding it in my hand and looking at it as an actual picture than through a phone or a screen.
So this guy's name was Dalton. He definitely made me tear up during this documentary. He was a classmate of theirs, very close to Abby and Libby. It's on, Delana, it's on the CW. I believe you can find it on Hulu, but you can actually find it on the CW's website and watch it for free.
That's why I was okay. Like, I'm 20 now. I thought I was okay with all this.
Wow. Brian,
Yeah,
how
it really is.
emotional.
It's really raw. Yeah, it's still so raw for the friends and family there. And I'm excited for tonight. We were able to break new ground, new exclusive interviews, and I think a look at the case in a way that people really haven't seen before.
Yeah, and I still, stand by the fact the Down the Hill podcast is still the most well-done podcast about this case I've ever listened to. So many chilling details. Brian, I also want to play a different clip from tonight's episode and then get your take on the other side. Take a look.
Police were giving out so little information in the early days, and the big question everyone had was, who did this? Was it someone passing through? Is it someone who knew the girls?
A lot of people are scared. People are watching their backs, locking their houses when they maybe didn't used to.
It's horrifying, and it's not the Indiana that I know. This person got to be caught.
Police weren't releasing a lot of information, but behind the scenes, the manhunt was definitely on.
Yeah. So Brian, I mean, this is obviously so well done. What more can you share, and what are you most looking forward to as we launch this new series?
Yeah, I think tonight, Marky, one of the big moments is we've got this exclusive interview with the girlfriend of Ron Logan. And he is the property owner. He's no longer alive, but he's the property owner of where the girls were found. And he was at one point a person of interest. He was never charged. They've, of course, now charged Richard Allen. But for the first time, Ron Logan's girlfriend is speaking out, saying that there was something suspicious about him, saying that they might actually have the wrong guy charged now, which is what a lot of people have been suspecting. So that's really going to be explosive. We've never heard from her before. So that's part of tonight's 2-hour episode. And then we've got 9 more episodes, everything from, Gabby Petito, the Idaho killings, Gilgo, the list goes on and on, Lori Vallow. And again, I think what's so special is that we get 2 hours. I mean, you love to tell stories. When you get 2 hours to dive into these, you can really break new ground.
I mean, so often, we as journalists, you and I have had this conversation before, Brian. We usually get about 90 seconds on air to tell a story from start to finish. So this really, does it justice. And those families deserve justice and more answers. Brian, we can't wait to watch. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching, everybody. Go to joinnn.com to find News Nation.
I don't know why he keeps saying it was 2 hours. It literally was an hour and like 24 minutes. I swear. Klein is old news. I mean, the case is 7 years old. But thank you, Scott. All right, so let's see what else my notes said, and then we can pull up another little clip. But yeah, you can, if you go to the CW, even Google, Delana, I know you asked like what it's called. It's Crime Nation by the CW. And you'll see like a Delphi episode. This week they're doing the White, Vicky White. And then they're going to do those other ones that he listed. Okay, so let's see what else. So they bring up Keegan Klein, and my thoughts on Keegan Klein, if he's involved, and this has something to do with Anthony Schatz, why would they leave the phone at the scene? Because obviously that's going to link them, anyone, related to Klein to Keegan, unless the perpetrator knew about the conversation between Keegan Klein and left it on purpose to point the direction in towards Keegan Klein. Do you know what I mean there? He said Dan Wootton. I'm so sorry. I don't want to. Oh, so Enton is not being sued? Okay. Well, that's good for Brian. All right. So do you see what I mean? So they left Libby's phone there at the scene. When it comes to Keegan Klein and Anthony Schatz, Keegan Klein stated there was more than one person that had access to Anthony Schatz's password. I just feel like if the Kleins are involved, including his father, why would they leave Libby's phone there, knowing that that's how they kind of like set up this whole plan? Not only that, but like why after cover his tracks more? I don't know. I still think he is involved in some way, shape, or form. It's hard not to. It's really hard not to think that Klein's involved. I just feel like after the documentary and kind of looking at things, what if it's just I don't know. I'm just having a hard time. If Klein is involved, why would they risk leaving there that linked them back to Keegan? I don't know. So they mentioned the bullet, obviously, and they mentioned how the word pseudoscience is used in the documentary. So it's debatable. Like experts in the documentary were kind of saying the same things. Injection markings in the documentary could have come from Richard Allen's gun. So that's not even saying yes, the markings definitely link it at 100%, which we kind of knew that. It's all about what the jury will take in. You know, what will the jury think when it comes to the markings? And then the expert, I think it was a prosecutor. It shows obviously their name and title underneath when they're commenting in the documentary, but I swear it was a prosecutor on the bullet. So this explained to me print, but not as strong. I just don't know how I would hold this bullet, you know, as high as maybe the prosecution would want a juror to. In the documentary, it seemed like they're mentioning Richard Allen's being it up, Ashley and how they've ruined cases before. As I feel inclined that Keegan Kline, I feel more inclined on Keegan Kline than Ron Logan. Interesting. I would have to. I think Ron Logan is highly suspect. It's too much reasonable doubt. And this documentary definitely brought that out again. And I feel like there's who maybe never looked into this case prior to seeing it on the CW. You're going to start thinking that it's Ron Logan, in my opinion. But I thought it was interesting that Ashley Banfield brought up how false confessions have ruined cases before in the past. The gag order prevents the confession transcripts from being released to the public, and the prosecution is the one that put the gag order on the case. So it leaves room for skepticism in regards to Richard Allen's confession. Now, that was stated a prosecutor, not Nick McClelland. And I have to agree, you know, it does kind of raise that, you know, as soon as these confessions allegedly came out, you know, and people obviously want the transcripts. They want to be able to hear and see the verbiage used by Richard Allen to his mom, to his wife. But the prosecution puts the gag order out, and that prevents stuff like that from being released. So did they do it like gag orders are done to kind of protect the integrity of a case? Or are there things that they just don't want to be transparent? So the expert who I'm Joni, forensic psychologist, she's been on, and gosh, police off the cuff, who else she's been on. She's very knowledgeable. She's in the documentary. She talks about false confessions happen because of duress and force, or because of extreme guilt and remorseful. Though this is my thoughts. Why wouldn't he just plead guilty or take a plea deal? So if he's made these confessions because he's just, you know, oh, I can't bear this anymore and I just need to come clean, you know, why go through this whole charade of like being transferred to prisons and being tased twice and all this stuff? Why not just get it over with? If he's so guilty and he's so remorseful that that's why he came out to his mom and his wife, you know, I just don't understand why it's still cutting in and out. Okay, I'm going to have to tell my hubby. I don't know. Give me a second. I don't know if there's anything he can do at the moment. So I don't want to just bail, but I don't want to keep glitching. So let me just read through my notes. Hopefully we can get through it. Let me X out some tabs too. Maybe that'll help. I do have a lot of tabs pulled up. But anyways, do you guys kind of understand what I'm saying about the guilt and remorse if that's why he confessed? Why not just take a deal at that point? There is a chart that claims Ron Logan would be oldest in history to commit a double murder on strangers. He is literally a record breaker, Guinness Book World Record. Wow. That's interesting. And thank you again for the super chat. So let me just go to, okay, so the prosecutor in the documentary says eyewitnesses are weak, bullet science is weak, confession could be explained. Maybe law enforcement should consider old information like they did when they found Richard Allen's tip. So that was stated in the documentary. Now that, we know that some things were recorded over, I wrote in my notes, however, some of that information has been deleted. So maybe it can't be considered or prosecuted or used for a prosecution against someone, So the prosecutor in this documentary, this was filmed before the news came out that things were recorded over, says, perhaps they need to go back and look at early information. Well, some of that information has been deleted. I don't rule out some involvement, but I never thought he acted alone. I see what you mean, for sure. Yeah, I want to know how valid the confession is. Richard Allen has no ties to Odinism. There's no DNA linking him to the crime. And there's no digital forensics linking him to the victims or the crime either. Now, will more be shown at trial, kind of displaying that? I mean, I sure as heck hope so, because right now I'm just not seeing it. And yeah, like I wrote in my notes, Court TV won't cover the deleted interviews or even the state saying that it wasn't evidence. Ron Logan was begging people for alibis. Why? Plus, they were found on his land. Also, he could be bridge guy, so it gets weird. But the thing is, why would he leave him on the land, Scott? I'm curious your thought there. I'm not saying that he's not involved. I really want to know people's theory who think that he's involved on why he would leave them on his own property. All right, so the last Delphi thing that Court TV showed was this 12 days ago. And look what it's titled. Delphi murders, Richard Allen's attorneys accused of disobeying court. This was 12 days ago. They haven't covered at all the interviews being deleted and how the defense is claiming evidence was destroyed. Court TV will not cover it. I'm just going to play this little segment and then we'll probably wrap it up. That was like a completion of my notes on Crime Nation. Like I said, I definitely recommend you guys see it, especially if you're into this case. It just kind of brought up more questions, I guess you could say. Even people in the documentary weren't really like, yes, it's Richard Allen is bridge guy, except for Gray Hughes. He definitely came out and said, like, yes, Richard Allen is bridge guy 100%. How is anyone saying 100%? No disrespect, Gray Hughes. Like, I know you don't watch, but how can you say 100%? That image is so grainy. People have compared so many other people side by side and said, this looks like him, So yeah, you definitely should watch it. I recommend it. I can't wait to hear what the heck the shack was. Yeah, that's another thing. Court TV did cover their prosecutors said it was no biggie. The interviews were deleted. What segment? Because I'm telling you, like I have, look at. They're covering the Russ stuff. And they had a bunch of Adam stuff. The only Delphi thing I see is 12 days ago. This. Unless it's in that. I didn't watch it yet. So maybe they do mention it in this. And they just just a couple days ago. Where? Was it on like their Twitter maybe? They were sitting on a couch. Okay, maybe it's in this one? I agree that would be stupid. Okay, about Ron Logan leaving them on his property. But did he have time or help to move them? I'm not saying it's him. I just think he is suspect. I have no clue, but the begging for an alibi bothered me. That's all. I definitely agree. I agree with you there. The pinging near the crime scene, people have said, well, yeah, he lives there. So of course his phone would be pinging. You can't just say that that's why it's pinging though. Like, yes, it kind of explains it, but does it 100% clear him? I don't know. It's not like law enforcement was digging up a fire pit at Logan's, is it? Well, they had a whole search warrant at Logan's like a month and a half after the crime, which was like way too far away for them to be doing a search warrant, in my opinion. I don't know. Either way, I wouldn't doubt that Court TV had a prosecutor say that it's not a big deal. A lot of people have kind of been saying, like, what's the big deal? We have the transcripts. That's fair if you trust everybody. I'm not one of those people. I don't trust just transcripts. This is, we should have more in 2024. We should be able to have video and it should be really good quality, Do you guys want to watch this little segment? I'll speed it up too.
An unexpected turn of events, ladies and gentlemen. Earlier this afternoon, the defense attorneys have withdrawn their representation of Mr. Allen. Mr. Baldwin made an oral motion to withdraw. I granted that oral motion to withdraw, and Mr. Rosie will be submitting a written motion to withdraw, I'm assuming within the next couple of days.
Okay, that was an amazing moment inside a courtroom for many reasons. The first being it's the first time ever that Court TV, in my tenure, has had a camera inside a criminal courtroom in the state of Indiana. And it's the biggest case in Indiana, one of the biggest cases in the country, the Delphi murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. But it's also huge because of what happened there. In this case, Richard Allen is the defendant. He's accused of the murder of these two girls. It took 5 years to solve the case, according to investigators. But the defense says it wasn't him. It was some Odinists. It was a ritualistic sacrifice that actually took place. Richard Allen, 100% innocent. The attorney's very aggressive. But then the attorneys stepped down from the case. Then the attorneys wanted to get back on. They had to go all the way to the Supreme Court of Indiana over the objections of the judge to get put back on the case. So now what's happening? The prosecutors, the state now going after these same defense attorneys. And take a look up on the screen what they're doing here. The state intends to call specific witnesses and introduce various pieces of evidence at the hearing on contemptuous conduct scheduled for March 18th.
I definitely think that Gull needs to be removed. She's shown way too much favoritism to the prosecution, and that's just not a judge position to pick sides. And thank you, Tom Allen, for giving welcome to those members. I really appreciate you guys. And thank you, Johnny. He said 51 likes on his end. Hit the thumbs up if you guys wouldn't mind. All right, Florida, have a good night. We'll talk soon.
2024 at 9 a.m. in the Allen County Superior Court, number 5. They're accusing the defense of contemptuous conduct. Per the local rules and Indiana rules of criminal procedure, the state of Indiana has turned over the list of witnesses and the list of exhibits to the defense. That the state sent a separate document entitled Witness and Exhibit List to the defense, along with a link that allows them to download the exhibits that the state intends to introduce. That the state believes the defense intends to introduce affidavits and other exhibits, along with testimony from various witnesses on this hearing. That the state would ask the court to issue an order commanding the defense to turn over all the evidence. The bottom line takeaway here is that it's a hearing for contemptuous conduct. Prosecutors going after the defense attorneys, who already went to the Supreme Court to get back on the case, but now I guess they want them held in contempt. All because a crime scene photo, a picture of a crime scene photo was taken from one of their offices by someone associated with the defense, unknowingly to the defense attorneys, and then given to a couple of podcasters. And I'm wondering, Why are they so focused on this and not the murder case? The murder case. This is not an easy case to prove. Barbara McDonald, Court TV senior producer of documentaries, interviewed William Librato, who was an interim attorney for the defendant Richard Allen. The attorney who stepped in when the original attorney stepped down, and then this attorney who you're going to hear from, he stepped down when the original attorney stepped back in. Confusing, I know, but take a listen.
Bradley Rosie and Andrew Baldwin issued a press release not too long into their getting the case, and they said they believe that Richard Allen is innocent. Do you have an opinion on that?
I do. I don't think Mr. Allen had anything to do with this. I honestly don't. Now, what I believe, nobody cares. My job would have been to convince 12 jurors of that.
You're a defense attorney, so that's your job to sort of say your client is innocent. Is that something you say about all your clients?
No, and rarely do I believe it. But in this particular case, I believe it. 100%.
And what convinced you?
Conversations with him, the fact that he lived in this very small community that's not much bigger than a high school. He worked at the CVS in Delphi. The police sketches are hung up in the CVS. The bridge guy picture is in the CVS. And in 5.5 years, no one comes into that store and says that kind of looks like you. And
Why also, I mean, this has also been brought up so many times, and I'm curious for those who think Richard Allen, hi, Mark, he says, those who think, why would a guilty person come forward and, you know, give up the information? Kind of where I could have come out to kind of make it seem like a guilty person, you know, like kind of reverse psychology. It's very, I just don't know. And
I don't know if this has any relevance, and you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but an arrest was made 24, 27 days before a sheriff election. Just my humble opinion that played some kind of role in his arrest. And he hadn't moved. He hadn't changed his story. No facts or evidence have changed to my knowledge that brought law enforcement back to him 5.5 years later. He has no criminal record. They raided his house, took all of his social media. There's no ties to this Odinist cult whatsoever. He didn't even know that there was Odinist in Delphi. He had never heard of it. Just a lot of things don't make sense.
Bradley Rosie and Andrew Baldwin also said that that there's no electronic evidence linking him to the crime scene or the girls, and that there's no DNA of his at the scene. Is that accurate?
Yes, as far as I can tell, yes.
Like I said, it's not going to be an easy case, right? It took 5 years for them to make an arrest of a guy who gave a statement saying he was in the Monon High Bridge area that day to an officer who was interviewing him. And then I guess that interview went on the bottom of the pile for 5.5 years. And they never thought to re-interview him until now. Now he's under arrest.
yeah, they never thought to re-interview, and they recorded over other people's interviews.
But here's my question for the think tank tonight. What's really going on here? Why is, like, this is not an easy case to try as a prosecutor. You're a former prosecutor. You're a former prosecutor. Is this a distraction? Like, wouldn't you be distracted by, like, so obsessed with getting the defense attorneys held in contempt versus, like, getting your ducks in a row so you can prove the biggest case ever in this state beyond a reasonable doubt?
My question is, why? Why are they doing this? And in some ways, it reminds me of the hokey pokey. One lawyer in, one lawyer out. Here we go, here we go. But why are they doing this? There's got to be something more that we are not aware of as to why the state's going after these lawyers. They may be fearful for many, many reasons. And I cannot, for the life of me, figure out why.
Is there, in your history as a prosecutor, did you ever go after the defense attorneys for doing something?
No. Nor, I mean,
it's unusual, right?
Nor would you try to get him kicked off a case. You know, obviously you have the right to pick your lawyer unless there's a conflict. And the other thing that the prosecutors are doing, they're setting themselves up in the future, because if they ever have a piece of evidence leak, Guess what? The other defense attorneys are going to file. They're going to take this motion and they're going to change the names and they're going to file it against the prosecutors. And I promise you that prosecutors leak information far more than defense attorneys.
I totally agree. And what's really interesting too is normally when they're court appointed or public defenders like this, they're stuck with the most harsh cases. So it's a little weird that they're all pawning to get to this case and the judge wants them removed and they have to go to the Indiana Supreme Court to be able to be put back on the
Well,
case.
they were originally assigned, so they would get paid. Then they said, no, we'll just do a pro bono.
Yes, which is insane, which means they really do believe in his innocence. So you got to wonder what's hiding here. And I am with Dad about to say it, that there's so much more here that we're going to learn. And it's going to be
Will we learn
in
it?
Odin we trust.
We should learn it. Whether we do or not, time will tell. But I'll say this. I think that they may have gotten off and wanted to get back on because they don't want to be public defenders forever. And this might be their
No,
chance.
they're private attorneys who got to sign the case.
Sign the case. But this could be their opportunity to be all across the nation and every type of media known, now known, or ever known in the future. And it might just bring
I
them
have a better
more
point of
business.
view of criminal defense lawyers. I just don't think that's what it is
I'm
about.
with Meg. I mean, I know, Daryl, you've never done anything pro bono, but Meg and I do pro bono stuff all the time.
Yep.
Okay. All right. We're going to stay on it, folks. Big case.
All right. Yeah. I definitely don't think that they would offer like pro bono to stay on it because they want fame and attention, like that guy was saying at the end. I've heard another YouTuber kind of throw that theory out. Attention, and that's why they, you know, it's not about them believing that Richard Allen's really innocent. They just want to stay on it for fame and attention. I just don't think that that's what's going on here. That is conclusion jumping that they believe he is innocent. Yeah, I mean, I guess all of us are jumping to conclusions until this trial. Sweet Dude claims that they covered the deleted evidence or interviews on court TV, but they might have deleted it. I'm curious if that actually did happen because I was shocked that they didn't, you know, bring it up at all because that clip that we just played was from 12 days ago. And, you know, Ben's claim the state lost evidence that could be exculpatory or, you know, help their defense is huge news, in my opinion. And I figured Court TV would have a segment on it. But if they deleted a segment, I'm very interested in that. I'm curious, anyone watching on replay, do you guys know anything about Court TV covering the deleted interviews and maybe they deleted the episode? It's conclusion jumping. It's based on facts of the case. I don't get that statement. Honestly, I mean, for me to think that somebody's guilty, I need DNA and I need digital forensics. A confession to me is like bottom of the barrel evidence. So those are my thoughts. I'm still undecided on Richard Allen. I think if he is involved, that he's not alone in this. In the United States, you start from assumption of innocence. Supposed to. The media doesn't seem to really portray that, though. The defense lawyers have seen all the evidence. That's what I meant. Right. That's why they have that presumption, or they feel like, you know, I found it. Wait, what? Where? We need to play it. Need to see it. And hello, Unsolved Crimes Uncovered. Good channel if anyone wants to check her out. Where is it, Sweet Dude? Let me give you a wrench so you can share a link because you can't share a link unless you're a moderator. So I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to give it to you so you can share the link with me through the chat. And we will just wait here patiently for I'm just looking at your guys' comments while we wait for this link. Do, 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 do. They must have a murder weapon, Johnny. I don't know. Do they even know what weapon it was? Because they always just keep saying sharp object. Okay, thank you, Sweet Dude. Let's see what this is. Wait, how did I miss this? How did I miss this? Okay, hold on. 9 minutes long. Thank you so much. I don't know, maybe I scrolled past it when I was showing things. Thank you so much. I want to watch this for the first time with you guys anyways. So let me share my screen and then we will conclude everything after we watch this. 2 weeks ago, not days though.
Lifetime that you're going to remember. The date your children are born, the date you're married, the date you buy your first house. The date Abby and Libby went missing. One of those dates was last Friday, October 28th, 2022. At that time, we had gathered evidence, and the judge did find probable cause for arrest of Richard Allen. This investigation is far from complete.
As Mr. Allen is now without counsel, I've ordered him transported back to the Department of Correction. Obviously, without counsel, Mr. Allen's hearing cannot proceed.
What's your reaction to the fact that his counsel withdrew and he wasn't even in court today?
Very disappointed. It doesn't seem to be much of a surprise.
Welcome back to Closing Arguments. We have new documents in the case against Richard Allen. He's accused of murdering 2 young girls, Abigail Williams and Liberty German, back in February of 2017. And since then, this case has been anything but typical. The defense claims their client did not commit these heinous crimes and murders. They say that the murders were part of a ritualistic killing. Allen's defense points the finger at an Odinist cult, and they've hinted that members of the prison system and the law enforcement there in the area, that they're actively involved in the conspiracy. These are all.
I will say that I shared with a federal law enforcement officer details on this case and a few pictures that were circulating of the crime scene, not the full ones, but just some bits and pieces that we kind of have of it, even like the mock imitation images that have been circulated from Court TV and True Crime Design by Design or whatever. And his first text message back said sacrificial killing. And then he said, or staged to look like one. So, you know, for McClelland to say that the defense's claims, you know, there's no proof. There's people who are looking at this with an expert eye who are saying like, yeah, it definitely could be a sacrifice. Or it could be made to look that way.
Allegations. Today, those accusations continue. The defense filed new documents now alleging that there are 2 interviews that are crucial to the case of key witnesses that they say were recorded by law enforcement and then taped over by law enforcement. So they've been deleted. The interviews were with a father of a boy that Abby Williams, one of the victims, was dating at the time, and another was a man who was a friend of that man, who the defense claims, along with the boy's father, are both known Odinists. Prosecution turned over discovery to the defense, including a letter cataloging the evidence that the prosecutor was turning over, and it revealed that the boyfriend's father's missing videotaped interview and the second man's missing interview, if one existed, were due to a DVR problem error discovered on September 20th, 2017. All recordings up to February 20th, 2017 were recorded over. And the defense argues this is especially negligent as those interviews took place 3 days after the murders. This long unsolved murder case. Still with me to talk about all this, Daryl Cohen, Molly Parmer, Meg Strickler. This gets weirder and weirder the more things that we hear from the defense. Is this just zealous representation, or are you starting to believe some of the things that they are alleging?
I believe very little of what they're alleging. But let's take a look at this for a moment. When our defendant was first arrested, he was big, and now he's little. He's now emaciated. I think that plays into the defense theory, whether they realize it or not. As the jury looks at him and they're going to say, I hear the evidence, because nobody actually saw anyone do it. It's circumstantial, which means nobody saw it, but it happened. And so they're going to look at him and say, could he have really done it? And I think the prosecution needs to just paste pictures of him when he was arrested so that the jury doesn't look at him as a little old person who just couldn't do it.
Prosecutors do that.
The physicality is not the issue. I believe this. I mean, here's the thing. Those of us that love what we do, that love criminal trial work, it's because the truth is stranger than fiction. These kind of things come out in criminal trials all the time. And as wild as this initially sounded, we all, when we first were covering this case, thought, Odinist? What is an Odinist? And then we found out that correctional officers that were in charge of him in the jail were Odinists. And now we find out that 2 very serious, very important interviews that police conducted were mysteriously recorded over. And these were Odinists? At what point do we say, this is too much? It's the same thing as like the circumstantial evidence that we talk about. At some point, you put it all together and you say something is here. I think he's innocent. I think it's an Odinist cult murder, and I think it's wild. And
Wow. So sweet dude, I'm I'm flabbergasted because now I'm remembering I seen this. I actually seen this, and I think
What I was thinking about with evidence, when you're talking about this, the circumstantial evidence, I think about it with like a brick wall, and you're just putting brick upon brick upon brick on cross-examination, that you pull out all of these facts, and it's in closing argument, you put it all on a PowerPoint or whatever you want, all of these bricks, and say, here, jury, it's not my burden to prove anything, but just take this back when you deliberate and say, have we proved reasonable doubt? And there are a lot of bricks, and they keep coming.
And it's not just a Saudi defense. They're not just saying
No.
someone else out there, you find it, prosecutor and police did it. They're saying we have a pretty good idea of what this all was. And I want to ask you specifically about these interview recordings, because this murders that happened in this area, this had to have been one of the biggest cases that they'd ever dealt with. So the idea that just 6 days after these interviews would have been taped over or lost or destroyed, that's the allegation here, is that the prosecution destroyed it. Does that raise any more red flags if there's an argument that, oh, it was an accident?
Doesn't bother me. Why doesn't it bother me? Because the people that were interviewed were available. If they were dead, then it would bother me. If they're available to be re-interviewed, even though their memory may not be as good as it once was.
Well, let me add something to your point, Daryl, because in that defense,
he kind of just like you. Maybe their memory isn't as good as it once was. Well, that's a problem.
filing that's described as a known contradiction is that the father of Abby's boyfriend, that at one point he told law enforcement back in 2017, so this might be in the written portion of that interview, that he never met Abby Williams, and she was reportedly dating his son at the time. Then when he was re-interviewed after all of this unfolded in 2023 with the arrest of Richard Allen and all this attention on the case, he told law enforcement after he was interviewed for about 39 minutes that he barely even knew that girl. I met her once. So what the defense is saying is that there's this one material and highly relevant contradiction that exists, and therefore it's plausible that there are many other contradictions that they would have if the defense had that information, but because of their accusations that the state was negligent in not preserving that evidence. So does that change your position?
The word is no, and it's spelled N-O, not K-N-O-W.
Molly.
I mean, what more do we need to say? This is incredibly suspicious. If the state is not transparent, that should be the first red flag. And then when you have this blatant inconsistency about whether he even knows the girl, and at first he's denying having ever met her, that's another red flag. And then now he's an Odinist, that's another red flag. I mean, at some point, we can't just blindly look to authority and assume that the state is always going to be doing the right thing. Corruption happens. This is an example, I think,
Can I
of
be
that.
devil's advocate, just for fun?
Please.
There are many, 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 many cases that I'm sure all three of us have had, and you hear on court TV, where things are lost, deleted, audio problems, technological issues. It's a very normal kind of happenstance. In
the interviews?
Yes.
All the interviews?
I'm just being devil's advocate just to kind of spice things up here. So you could argue, since they are still available, and that inconsistent statement that he made is not that inconsistent. You know, this is a 14-year-old girl. I have a 15-year-old girl. I don't know what's going on in her life with respect to everything, because you're dating at that level is not that big of a boyfriend-girlfriend kind of thing yet. Now, 17, 18, 19, 20, as they get older, it's a bigger thing. He's laughing because he's got that age.
I definitely disagree with her saying like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. You know, they're 14 years old. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I agree, sweet dude. There's some red flags around BH and his statements changing, them saying like, oh, well, sometimes these things happen and interviews get recorded over. That's fine and dandy if this case didn't take long for didn't lose the tip for the guy that they arrested. Things that have kind of made things look fishy. So say they accidentally record over it. I mean, that's just incompetence. And then the same that Richard Allen's the guy, you guys are the ones that recorded over material that could be used. Matters, in my opinion, that these interviews are now just transcripts and we have to trust scripts.
Could this father have tried to distance himself then if he knew his son was dating her?
I'm just trying to argue devil's advocate that these things happen and it's not enough to be problematic, because they can still give commentary of what they know in 2023. I barely met her. That's like, you know, not a stringent, inconsistent statement.
Doesn't bother me because nothing is absolute. That's why it's guilty, if found guilty, beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt.
And
There's going to be doubt.
to you or no?
It doesn't scream that to me at all. I say mistakes, whether it's intentional or not, that's a whole different situation. But even if it is, people were still available. And the fact that he may have known this girl, he may not have known her, that doesn't bother me. That really is minute.
I mean, this trial is going to be unbelievable.
Okay, so yeah, thank you, sweet dude, for playing that. I'm a fool. I already seen it. I don't know how I forgot that they actually, I think I was like annoyed that they didn't cover, Court TV hasn't covered the state's response saying that it wasn't evidence and we still have the transcripts. So I read through the article that had the quotes directly from McClelland. If you guys want to go back in the beginning of the stream and watch those. I'm sorry if things were a little glitchy for whatever, but hopefully it'll be fixed by Thursday night's stream when we cover the Watts case. And then Friday we'll be covering another case. So not Watts, not Delphi, but I'm not sure what topic it'll be. But thank you guys so much for being here. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't. Again, I appreciate everyone's difference in opinion. I am still undecided on guilt or not for Richard Allen. So it's hard for me to kind of go to bat for him because I'm like, there's still a chance that like he is involved. Maybe he was bridge guy, but he's not the voice that says guys down the hill and there's other people involved. I just really don't think it's a lone wolf situation. So if Richard Allen goes down for this, like I really think that they're missing something when it comes to maybe other people's involvements. But either way, I appreciate you guys being here. And thank you so much for coming in and chatting Unsolved Crimes Uncovered and everyone else who chatted. Thank you to those who donated. Tom N., you're very appreciated. Hope you know that. I think the deleted interviews had exculpatory evidence discovered were inane. It was fine. Audio glitched, but we didn't miss anything. Oh, good. Well, I appreciate you guys all being here, and we'll talk very soon. And yeah, good night, guys.